Aloha kakahiaka. Welcome to the Committee on Water and Land. I'm Vice Chair Mahina Poi Poi. We are gaveling into the Thursday, March 16, 2023 meeting. It's 10 a.m., conference room 430 at the State Capitol. We are going to recess. We're currently in a joint hearing downstairs, and as soon as we're done, we're going to come back up and continue. Thank you.
morning, everybody. We are reconvening the Waterland Committee 10 a.m. agenda. My sincere apologies for being late. We were just wrapping up a joint hearing with EAP downstairs that ran a little bit long. So starting off, Senate Bill 81 relating to natural resource management. We have testimony from DLNR.
Good morning, Chair Michael Kane. On behalf of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, we have submitted comments, and we just want to clarify that our intent is to facilitate a smooth transition to this new Mauna Kea authority. So please keep that in mind with our comments. We want the process to work, and we want to assist with the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Next, we have John Komeiji, Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. I saw him downstairs. Okay. That's everyone we have signed up to testify on SB 81. Is there anyone else who would like to offer testimony on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? No. Okay. Oh, Mr. Komeiji, perfect timing. You're up. We're on SB 81.
You guys trying to confuse me.
Sorry. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
John Komeiji on behalf of the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. We'll stand on our testimony. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. One thing I might add that we didn't specifically identify in our testimony is that Act 255 specifically recognized that there were changes that might need to be made in the future. And they specifically require the authority to come back next session with a list of potential changes, etc. So when we asked to say that there should be an overall review as opposed to a piecemeal review, that's sort of the basis for our request, that we know that we have to come back next session with recommendations about things that may need to be tweaked, changed, added, deleted, etc.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Komeiji. Any members, any questions? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to Senate Bill 75 relating to historic preservation. First up, DLNR.
Aloha, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Alan Downer, the Administrator of the State Historic Preservation Division. The Department stands on its written testimony in support. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. So everybody who signed up to testify today on SB 75, is anyone else who would like to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? I have a quick question for SHPD, Mr. Downer, if you could, return to the podium. In your testimony, you mentioned that DLNR would need $750,000. You said per item?
Yes,
So is that for each of the three
correct,
that's listed? So it would be a total of $2.25 million.
correct.
Okay,
That's our estimate.
great. Thanks. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other questions, we're going to move next to Senate Bill 735 relating to the disposition of water rights. Testimony from DLNR.
The department will stand on its written testimony in support of the measure, and I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hirakawa.
Thank you.
To everybody who signed up today on SB 735, does anyone like to offer testimony on that measure? Please say none, members. Any questions? Okay, next moving on to Senate Bill 93 relating to reuse zones. First up is DLNR.
Hello, Chair, Committee members, Khalil Mann, Deputy with the Water Commission. We stand on our written testimony and are here for questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Manuel. Next is Department of Health.
See you for with the Department of Health. We stand on our written testimony with comments.
Thank you. Department of the Attorney General.
Good morning. Dale Sakata for the Department of the Attorney General. We don't stand on our written testimony. We have our written testimony before you, but I want to point out that as the bill is currently written, the enforcement authority and the rulemaking authority, excuse me, seem to be mismatched. Right now, it appears that enforcement will be done by DLNR, but they don't have rulemaking authority if the statute is placed into Chapter 342D. So when the legislature decides who should enforce, then we can assist you in revising the bill so that it all works out properly.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to offer testimony on Senate Bill 93? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move next to Senate Bill 94 relating to special activity permits. First up is DLNR.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, David Sakota with the Division of Aquatic Resources for DLNR. We'll stand on our written testimony in support, and we're available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Next we have, for the fishes, Ms. Inga Gibson.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Inga Gibson on behalf of For the Fishes, Moana Ohana, and Malama Mano. We did submit testimony in support with your consideration of a few amendments. Special activity permits are a unique process conferred to those to basically participate in activities that would otherwise be illegal. There are members of the community that are very concerned about the issuance of these special activity permits as they may impact their cultural practices. There was a recent case an ongoing case in West Hawaii where a special activity permit was being issued that would involve interaction with scalloped hammerhead sharks, for example, and there was no consultation with the cultural practitioners. So we are encouraging that an amendment, page 1, line 12, that would ask the department to consult with cultural practitioners from the affected areas. And in just now talking with David Sakota from DAR, we believe that possibly referencing OHA and the ahamokus might be the most appropriate way to get impact from cultural practitioners in these areas. And then another point to note is that currently these special activity permits that are granted are not noticed to the public. The public has no input, no knowledge of these permits that are being issued. Sometimes these permits are issued for the take of thousands and thousands of our aquatic resources, thousands of fish and other species. So we have asked repeatedly the division to please publicly notice these SAPs so that both cultural practitioners and the public can provide input before the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Thus far, it's been their internal policy not to put these on the BLNR agenda, so we would really like to see some process where the public can review these and provide their input, especially if it's impacting their areas and their practices. So those two considerations. I know that the bill has just a double referral, and we would be pleased to continue to work with DAR on tighter language or better language, but the community has asked me to come forward and share these concerns regarding these two potential amendments. So
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
thank you very much.
Okay, that's everybody who signed up to testify on SB 94. Is anyone who'd like to offer testimony on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, next, moving on to Senate Bill 730 relating to fish ponds. We have testimony from DLNR.
The department stands on our testimony and support. We're here for questions.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony from Kevin Chang with KUA. Mr. Chang?
Hey gang, aloha, host committee in Waterland. Sorry, my internet's out, so I'm on my cell phone, but just here to stand on our testimony. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Okay, that's everybody who signed up to testify today on SB 730. Anyone else who'd like to offer further testimony on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Rep. Gagnon.
Oh, I defer to a representative from Kauai.
Rep. Morikawa.
Just for DLNR, what kind of fish are you stocking? Is this only mullet?
David Sakota with DAR. Right now, we're not currently stocking, or at least DLNR is not doing any production, but we are working with Waianae High School, and we're in consultation with other communities, and I think mullet is the primary species for now, where there's the technology to produce the fingerlings. But I know communities are interested in other species such as ava or I can't remember other species.
Moi, no moi.
Moi can be produced. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's another species
Yeah,
also.
because I guess our concern is that, everyone says that there aren't fish around the islands, and I think instead of restricting fishermen, shoreline fishermen, or whatever, I think the importance should be more put into stocking, yeah? Making sure that we have the stock that we can throw back out to the ocean. Thank you.
Definitely,
Thank you for this.
thanks.
Oh, Dylan.
Oh, Mr. Sakota, please come.
Hi. In a previous life, I was a journalist, and I got to tour some of the local IA, like around the islands, and learn some of the history and importance of fish ponds to not just Hawaiians, but Pacific Islanders. I represent Pu'uloa, which was once home to what might be dozens of fish ponds, which was then turned into Pearl Harbor Hickam. Is the DLNR interested in partnering with nonprofits and communities and to do work on Department of Defense land to rehabilitate these kinds of natural resources?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I believe we are working on some restoration in Pearl Harbor, Honouliuli, working with communities, and so we definitely are open. We recognize the importance of restoring those types of estuary areas because those are the major sources of productivity for our native fisheries. And so we are doing partnerships, and we're definitely open to increasing that.
I'd also like to reference the City and County of Honolulu created the Office of Sustainability and Resilience created a report in 2020 discussing the necessity of developing healthy ecosystems near the shoreline. So can you tell the committee, how these fish ponds and their restoration might help in managed retreat and our resilience towards climate change?
I'm not familiar with the report, but I can speak to the benefit of fish ponds to our nearshore marine ecosystems. Restoring the freshwater flow is really important for fish pond restoration, and that benefits not just the fish in the fish ponds, but it also increases productivity because a lot of the larval fish, juvenile fish, make their way out into the nearshore where they're available for the public. So it increases the productivity overall for the general public to harvest.
All right. Oh, one more question. I see in the testimony, but not in the bill, that last year $300,000 was appropriated, and $500,000 for fiscal year 23-24. Is this work underway already?
Yeah, so currently we're working with Waianae High School. They also received an appropriation for fish pond production, and so in talks with them and with Oceanic Institute, we're providing the funds to them so that they can get training from researchers with expertise in mullet production, so they can train their students and their practitioners on how to produce their own mullet.
Okay.
At 11:30.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work.
All right, thanks.
Please assemble in the Senate chambers in 30 minutes. Mahalo.
Thanks everyone for your patience.
Yeah.
Members, any other questions on this measure? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to SB 89 relating to marine management areas. And first up, we have testimony from DLNR.
The department stands on our testimony and respectful opposition.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to offer testimony on SB 89? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, next moving on to SB 1264 relating to commercial fishing and DLNR.
Stands on our testimony and support, and David Sakota and I are here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Next we have testimony, Randy Cates on Zoom. Not present. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to offer testimony on SB 1264? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, moving on to Senate Bill 1068 relating to beaches. Testimony from Office of Planning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Justine Ihipali for the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. We stand on our testimony in support, and we've done some preliminary scoping just to better understand the appropriation amount that might be needed for a study and plan of this scale, and we've provided that in our testimony. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ihipali. Okay, next testimony from DLNR. Thank you. Testimony from Dean Fletcher, University of Hawaii, in support. Okay, that's everybody who signed up to testify on SB 1068. Anyone else who'd like to offer testimony on this measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to the last bill, Senate Bill 1291, relating to sea level rise adaptation. First, we have testimony from DLNR.
The department stands on our testimony and support. Michael Kane and I are available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have testimony from OPSD.
Great. Justine Ihipali again for Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. We stand on our testimony and strong support for this bill. We really feel that it complements a suite of work that we are doing in the Coastal Zone Management Program from various scales, and this would be very helpful for our state's resilience and fulfilling Act 178 from 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Testimony from DBED. In support. Testimony from Dean Fletcher, University of Hawaii. In support. Is anyone else who would like to offer testimony on Senate Bill 1291? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making. Recess. Okay, thanks so much again, everyone, for your patience and for helping us speed through that agenda. Really appreciate it. We are going to reconvene for decision making, Community and Water Land, our 10 a.m. agenda. First up is Senate Bill 81's Senate Draft 2 relating to natural resource management. I appreciate the testimony from the Mauna Kea Authority that they are working to review Act 255 and make comprehensive amendments on this on that legislation. I think I'd like to keep this going for further discussion and let the next committee take a look at it as well. Recommendation is to pass it out as is, but I'd also like to note in the committee report that the testimony from the Mauna Kea Authority and their hope to address this in the coming session. Members, are there any questions? Vice Chair, as is.
Voting on SB 81 SD2 as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Chen?
Aye.
Representative Ganaden?
Aye.
Representative Hashem? Excused. Representative Morikawa?
Aye.
Representative Takayama?
Aye.
Representative Souza? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you very much, members. Next, Senate Bill 75, Senate Draft 2, relating to historic preservation. Recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1. We are going to change the means of financing, change the funding to go into the Historic Preservation Fund so that the funds will be available on a continuing basis. We're going to defect the date June 30th, 3000, and we're going to insert the amount of $2.25 million total, $750,000 for each of the 3 items into the committee report. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on SB 75 SD2 with amendments, noting Representative Hashem is excused. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, moving to Senate Bill 735 relating to the disposition of water rights. Recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1, just changing the effective date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on SB 735 SD1 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused. Are there any noes or reservations? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, SB 93 relating to reuse zones. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. We're going to defect the date to June 30th, 3000. There's also some technical non-substantive amendments. We're going to adopt the Department of Health amendments in their testimony. We're also going to adopt some of the recommendations from DLNR to delete on page 2, lines 2 through 4, and then instead insert from the DLNR testimony, any county agencies producing recycled water shall establish water reuse zones within their service areas by January 1, 2024. We're also going to insert a definition of water reuse zones. Okay, members, any questions? Vice Chair.
Voting on SB 93 SD1 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, Senate Bill 94 relating to special activity permits. Recommendation is to pass this out as a House Draft 1, redefecting the date June 30th, 3000. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting
House
on
Draft 1.
SB 94 SD2 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Next, Senate Bill 730 relating to fish ponds. We are going to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Technical non-substantive amendments. Also, we're going to adopt the recommendation from OHA and add to Section 2 on page 2, line 4, the following. It will say, provided that the department shall consult with relevant Native Hawaiian communities and organizations. Members, any questions?
Ruling on a potential conflict.
Oh, please state your conflict, Vice Chair.
I am a volunteer at fish ponds on Molokai.
Okay, well, this bill applies broadly to all fish ponds, so no conflict.
Okay.
Thank you for your request. Anyone
I
else work
lose
on
mine.
fish ponds? No?
I have. I like fish.
No conflict.
They're good. Good.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Okay, voting on SB 730 SD2 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused. Any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members. SB 89 relating to marine management areas. I think the department made it very clear in their testimony that they already have the ability to do this through rulemaking. So we're going to defer this measure. SB 1264 relating to commercial fishing. You know, I realized there was some concerns brought up in the testimony from the fishers. I'd like to keep this moving for further discussion. The recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1. We're going to defect the date to June 30th, 3000. Technical non-substantive amendments. We're going to limit the limited entry commercial fisheries to 2 species, uhu and kala. We're also going to put a 5-year sunset on this bill and request DLNR to report annually to the legislature and consult with stakeholders to get community feedback on how this program is being implemented over that 5-year period. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on SB 1264 SD2 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused. Are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, moving on to SB 1068 relating to beaches. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1. We are going to defect the date to June 30th, 3000. We're also going to adopt the amendment from the CRC Hawaii Sea Grant in their testimony. On page 2, lines 12 through 15, they want to add in the words adaptation as another consideration for the state plan. I'd also like to insert into the committee report the the concern that the proposed amendment on page 2, lines 7 through 8, may not be related to the bill title, but I'll leave that up to the next committee to consider. Members, any questions, concerns? Okay, House Draft 1.
Voting on SB 1068 SD2 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused, are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Last bill, Senate Bill 1291, relating to sea level rise adaptation. Recommendation is to just re-defect the date, June 30th, 3000. I'd also like to put the amount of $400,000 into the committee report for the Finance Committee to consider. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on SB 1291 SD1 with amendments. Noting Representative Hashem is excused, are there any noes or reservations? Chair's recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. We are adjourned.